everyone. My name is Derek Fisher with Securely Built. I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about secure browsing, and just wanted to give some options and some tips and tricks here for how to uh, try to maintain some level of security and privacy on the internet while you're browsing. So what are the things we're trying to protect ourselves against when it comes to browsing the web? There's two kind of things that come to mind. One is tracking, and this really is around companies and websites like Google, Facebook, Amazon. They're all trying to collect information about you to build a profile to better provide advertising that's more suited to your preferences. In some ways, that's good because you see ads that should be somewhat relevant, but we all know that that's not really the case. And the way the tracking is done is typically through cookies. So some of us may be familiar with what cookies are, but basically when you browse a site, you go to a website, along with the web page, as it loads, the site's also presenting you with a cookie. Now your browser handles all that. You don't actually see it, but your browser takes that cookie and stores that on your computer so that every time you make a request to that website, when you click on a page or you go to a different part of that website, you're actually sending that cookie along so that the website knows your preferences, knows more about you. But the site is constantly putting information into that cookie and building up that profile. So that's why if you go to let's say you do a search in Google for a sweater. The next time you go to Facebook, you may start seeing ads for sweaters. And really that's just the way the cookies are kind of handled by your browser, and each one of those sites knows how to get access to those cookies, or at least get information that's resides within those cookies. And cookies have some good value. They are, again, they're kind of the backbone to the way you interact with different websites, and it stores the information about preferences that you have, but it also can provide identity to websites. So that's why you only log in once, is because that cookie is being sent to the browser anytime you click or to the website anytime you click on a different page, so it knows that it's still you. So that's in a nutshell, that's kind of how tracking works. So the other thing we're trying to protect against or we're trying to maintain is our privacy. This could be, making sure that you're not just your browser traffic, but more down on the lower level, your network traffic. We want to make sure that there's some level of security with that traffic, so that somebody can't eavesdrop on it and pull out information about the information that you're sending to those websites. So one of the techniques that can be used is what we call sandboxing. And a sandbox is basically, the term means just basically a play area that's, is contained. So when we're talking about sandboxing, we're really talking about, you can think of it as a container. And it keeps, in this case, a browser. When you're going on, when you're browsing around, the information that you're using is kept inside of that container, or the information that's within that browser is kept within that container, and it doesn't actually write to the hard drive, not in the same sense that it would if you were outside of that container. And once you delete the contents that are in that sandbox, nothing should be left behind. There's a lot of different options that exist out there. The one that I use is sandboxing, and we'll show an example of that here in a minute. But again, I'm not advocating for sandboxing. It's just the one that I use. It's free, but there are a lot of other options out there. So, along with sandboxing, one of the other techniques that are used on the internet is private browsing, or what we would call incognito. And in incognito mode, it's basically the browser's not storing any information about the activity that's being done within that session. So if you go to something like your bank in incognito mode, it's going to ask you to log in, but every time you go back to it, it's going to keep asking you to log in. It's not going to basically store your session. And maybe that's not a great example of it, but basically, those cookies and the preferences and all that information that would typically go to that website is not being stored, so that you would have to keep, that information, the site seeing you for the first time every time you go. So this information could be your browser history, your cookies, the cache, the login credentials, all that information when you're in a private mode or incognito is not actually kept in the browser. There's a couple browser extensions that are also helpful. Privacy Badger and uBlock Origin are both good ad blockers and third-party and content filters. So basically, it just means that it protects the information that's coming to you when you browse to a site. It's going to make sure that that the information that comes to you is not being served up by third parties that aren't really trusted. And in a lot of cases, that's going to sweep up the advertisers trying to send ads down to your browser when you go to a site. So in effect, it's acting as an ad blocker. I do also want to point out that there's a browser extension called DuckDuckGo, which allows for private search and ad blocking. DuckDuckGo is an alternative to Google, so it's a private search engine. So it's very helpful to use that as opposed to using something like Google. I do also want to point out that there's a couple browsers. There's plenty of secure browsers out there. The ones that are kind of top of mind are Tor. We're not going to go over the Tor browser here today, but maybe in a future talk we will. But the Tor browser is basically it's pretty much as secure as you can get in terms of browsing. Brave is a pretty slick looking, streamlined browser, again with a security focus. And speaking of focus, Firefox focus again is a very privacy focused and security focused browser. So one other concept that people may be familiar with is VPN. And for those that maybe they work in an organization that allows them to remote in from their home network, you're using a VPN when you do that. So what happens is you take your laptop, you connect to a VPN, and that VPN is actually putting you inside the corporate network. So it looks as though your system, your laptop that you're logging in from at your house is actually sitting in the corporate network, when in reality it's you're actually at home. And you can think of it as a secure tunnel between 2 points. So again, in the corporate network and scenario, when you connect your laptop to the corporate or to the VPN, it's going to have a secure tunnel, meaning that nothing can see within that tunnel between your laptop and inside the corporate network. So it's a protected tunnel that makes it look like you are within that corporate network. This is there's a couple different benefits to this. One is that it's a single point of entry into a guarded environment. So again, the corporate network, what they would have is these VPN connection servers that are right on what we would call the edge of the network, and that's where everybody connects to that that endpoint, and everything is encrypted between all the different laptops or all the different devices that are connecting to that endpoint within the corporate network. It's basically a single point of entry. So there's good protections around that to make sure that the right people are coming through. So it does provide some pretty strong security there. But another benefit to VPN, more on the personal level, is that it allows you to be protected in risky environments. So if you think of places like coffee shops, airports, restaurants, and hotels, they typically offer a free Wi-Fi. Nothing's free. No, what's that saying? There's no such thing as free lunch. There's risks that come along with connecting to those kind of wireless environments. So if you just a simple example here is that if you're on a Wi-Fi connection with a lot of other devices, as long as you're on that Wi-Fi network, you are able to see the traffic of all the other devices that are on that Wi-Fi network. So if you're inside of a Starbucks and there's 10 people in there and all 10 of you are connected to the Wi-Fi, all of you can see each other's traffic. Now, a lot of that's encrypted, depending on how, depending on the type of traffic, but still there's the potential there for somebody to be able to sniff the network traffic and be able to see the information. So VPN ensures that there's an encrypted communication, that if you're in that kind of environment where there's you're on a shared network, that nobody else can really see that information. The other opportunity that you have here is remote into your own house, similar to what I talked about there with the corporate network. If you travel, say you're on vacation and there's files on your desktop computer that you want to have access to, you can remote in, use a, not remote in, but you can use a VPN connection to your home network to be able to access files on your desktop. So obviously that needs to be set up ahead of time, but it's an option. So that's kind of VPNs in a nutshell there. So let's put it all together. So I'm going to show here some examples. So here we're going to show what's called a Nord VPN. Now, I've used other VPN services in the past. I'm currently using Nord. Again, I'm not advocating for them, but I do like some of the options and features that they have. Here you can see all the different locations that you can, the destinations where your traffic will go. So in this case, I'm logging into Spain, or at least I'm going to show that my connection's coming through Spain. So it's showing here that I'm protected, connected to Spain. And just to show that there's nothing on my sleeve here, I'm going to show my IP address, which you can see there at the top, and also showing that I'm coming out in Madrid. So here's Sandboxing, which is the sandbox technology that I was talking about earlier. What we're going to do here is bring up a browser. I'm going to go into private mode or in incognito mode. You can see here that with the mask and the yellow bar around, the mask signifies the incognito mode. The yellow bar around shows that I'm within a sandbox. The browser's up, ready to search. So what we have here is VPN'd in, running in a sandbox in private mode or incognito mode, and using DuckDuckGo for search. So this, is it's a pretty good way of maintaining some level of privacy on the internet. And the reason I say that is I wanted to say that as a disclaimer here that in the security field, we like to not say that something's 100% secure, because using multiple technologies here means that there's multiple risks. So there could be an issue with the VPN. In fact, NordVPN was in the news not that long ago. So there's vulnerabilities and risks that are associated with using these different tools. But for the vast majority of use cases, if you're just trying to provide some kind of level of security and privacy while you're doing some browsing, especially if you're in a network environment or in some kind of a shared environment, this is a pretty good way of making sure that you're reasonably safe. And with that, I appreciate your time. Hope you found this valuable, and I'll talk to you later.